Today, the lived experience we're going to be focusing on is those people who have recovered or are in recovery from mental health conditions or substance misuse. These are the peers we're talking about today. Now, because someone is a peer with that lived experience does not necessarily mean they are ready to help someone else in their recovery as a peer supporter. Specifically, peer supporters are peers who are ready to leverage their lived experience to help someone else recover from a mental health condition or addiction. Peer supporters are peers who are well established in their own recovery. Peer supporters are peers who have lived experience in navigating and using the available community resources in their recovery journey. These are the peers who can use their lived experience as a job qualification and pursue becoming a professional peer supporter. I'm sure all of you have heard different titles for peer support positions. When we're using the different titles, it is important to understand that we're distinguishing peer support, or whatever term the organization uses, from peers who would benefit from the services of a peer supporter. It is important to see peer supporters as a professional who is helping their peers start their journey of recovery from mental health condition or addiction. The peer support field has a long history that had its start in social justice movements around civil rights and consumer-driven services in behavioral health. Because of these origins, it is so great to see the attention the field has been getting over the past few years. In that spirit, Caring for Denver has committed to investing in the expansion of the peer support workforce. So to date, we have provided $13.2 million to 22 organizations to hire or train peer supporters.
Woo!
And on this slide are all the organizations that we have funded to date. We thought that convening would be important to have because many of the organizations we have partnered with have lessons learned from their grant work and would like to hear about the best ways to hire, train, and retain a peer support workforce. They also wanted to meet with others who are working in this space. So we hope this event will provide that opportunity for learning and connecting. Today, we have a representative from a city agency offering a city perspective on peer support. We have a representative from a training organization who trains many peer supporters in Colorado. And we have a representative from a nonprofit who is implementing a successful peer support program working with the homeless. So with that, I would like to have each of our panelists introduce themselves and provide some opening remarks.
I guess that's me first. Hi, everyone. I'm Elise Matatal. I use she, her pronouns. I'm technically the Caring for Denver administrator at the City and County of Denver in the Department of Public Health and Environment. Not a peer supporter, so I have a little bit of imposter syndrome being in this incredible crowd of incredible experts, but I'm representing the city because we did a year-long assessment and then action planning project, which was really cool to see all the incredible work that's happening at the City and County of Denver and the different departments that we have peer navigators and peer supporters working, and it was really cool to be able to do that over the last year. I'm happy. I'm going to share some of where we're going with that later in the talk, but just wanted to share that I'm a social worker by training, but care a lot about elevating lived experience experts, folks who have learned the hard way and are committed to giving back. I helped start a program at my old job for peer resource navigators, knew nothing about the occupation at the time, and have learned so much throughout this process. So really excited to just be here with you all today.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hope Hyatt. I am the executive director at the Colorado Mental Wellness Network. I've been in my role now for 6 years. And I just really want to thank Tim, Lorez, and the Caring for Denver Foundation for putting this on and recognizing the power of peer support and being such supporters of our work and of today. And I want to thank my panelists here, Elise and Kwika, who are just rock stars in the industry. And I thank all of you for coming here and being a part of today. And this is just a wonderful opportunity and really thrilled to be here. I am a Denver native. I am a peer support professional. I am a peer support supervisor, in addition to my role as leader of CMWN. We've been around since 2013 officially. I was in our very first peer support training class back in 2012. It's come a long way. Moving into a virtual space in 2020, and we're currently in our 30th virtual training right now. And we're at almost, I think it's 482 peer supporters trained since 2012. Thank you. I know. Woo! We've moved into training supervisors. We've launched a key concept, kind of a part 1. And next week we're launching a part 2, a deeper dive. More information will be coming out on that and all of our dates next year. We've done a lot as an organization in a short time, and I'm really honored to be in this position to lead us, to be a part of us. And this organization is very, it's deeply personal. The peer support training really transformed my life. I was a person walked in there in 2012 with a lot of stigma and a lot of shame about my mental health and my substance use past. And through this training, I was able to learn, and in this very transformational way, that what I've been through is a strength, and I survived. And I'm forever grateful that I'm not walking around as someone with that self-stigma and shame. And it's kind of wild. I make a living off of it. But here we are, and it's just an honor to be here. And thank you again. We have an incredible community. Our recovery community, what we're doing is incredible. Our work is incredible and impactful and evidence-based, and we have such positive and successful outcomes with the work we all do. And getting to a place where we're more aligned with national standards and eliminating the massive confusion around here has kind of been a big part of what we do and what we'll continue to do. And I'm very excited. We're launching the Colorado Association of Peer Support Professionals next year, the beginning of January. So more on that. And it's just thank you. What an honor to be here.
Thank you, Hope. My name is Kwika Montoya. I am currently in the Senior Director of Homelessness Programs role at Colorado Village Collaborative. I would like to celebrate my recent promotion with all of you. For one huge thing is our entire nonprofit is now, all of our programs are peer-led. I have been working to align the organization for quite some time since I joined, but I just wanted to take that moment to celebrate that with you guys. So I, began getting trained in peer support in 2017. I am a person in recovery from mental health, substance misuse, the criminal court system, and homelessness. I just decided to bring all of it with me, get all the experiences, right? And so when I recovered and my heart started beating for wanting to help other people because of what I went through on the streets, I found out about peer support, was trained by CMWN, and my first gig was at the Denver Public Library's Peer Navigator program. And it's been a hell of a journey. I'm not gonna lie, I've been super honored to be able to show up in my life today. I'm honored to be a partner with Caring for Denver. I'm honored to be in this work with Elise and Hope. And every day I get to make a difference in the lives of people who want to give back. There is something very, very beautiful about peer support, and it's the passion and the willingness to help others that makes it so beautiful. And so I joined Colorado Village Collaborative to be the Safe Outdoor Space Manager in an innovative alternative shelter for folks experiencing unsheltered homelessness. And I also, at that same time, was given the opportunity to kind of co-author a grant for Caring for Denver. They were about, I think, 1 year old maybe at that point. And I was like, I want peers. I mean, I'll shout it at the rooftops. And I have been on this amazing journey with Caring for Denver and Colorado Village Collaborative and really building a program from the ground up. I will say, it's been an honor being able to have peer support kind of essential part of our team at an alternative shelter, and also learn how we can do it better and kind of be on this journey with the people in our organization, how we can show up and be the best employer for peer supporters. So, I'm always happy to share my learning journey with everybody. And thank you for letting me be in this space with all of you. I'm excited to have this conversation.
So the first question that we have, so we hear from a number of our organizations that we fund that, they like, what is the secret for what do we need to look for in hiring a peer support specialist? And so what do you think are the important things that need to be considered when hiring a peer as a peer supporter?
I think Hope and Kwika can probably speak to the hiring more, but I just wanted to highlight that the City and County of Denver currently has, I think, 4 or 5 programs: Denver Public Library, Denver County Courts, the Office of the Municipal Public Defender. I'm sure I'm missing. So, and Denver, yeah. So lots of folks doing this work really well. And basically what we found is there are a lot of programs that are doing it well, but people are having to informally talk to each other to get job descriptions and figure out little by little. And people are starting to build up networks and have referrals and have folks that are more recognized and can refer to each other. So I don't know that that specifically answers your question. I think they can speak better. But what we are learning is that having the community to tap into and people who are identifying as peer supporters is a huge piece of it. Because before, folks were saying, we want peer supporters, and then kind of hiring anyone who maybe didn't necessarily have the training or have shared lived experience with the folks they were working with. So it was trying to formalize it a little bit over the years has been very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. So over the many years of offering peer support, and I'm just going to say one of the premier peer support trainings in Colorado, that it's skills-based, time for practice elements and real role plays, and it's been amazing to see the transformation of our workforce and the transformation of us being involved in all different parts of our state, city, municipalities, all over. And it's wonderful. And thanks to Caring for Denver Foundation for partnering on expanding opportunities for peer support programs. And I think what we do is not rocket science, but what we do is nuanced, and there is standards, and we don't just magically come through recovery and like a unicorn would magically just know what to do. That's not how this happens. Training and good training and baseline training and continued education to align with what we know is role clarity and maintaining role integrity and having role fidelity. Because if we're not operating in our role, then this is not an evidence-based practice, and we won't have successful and positive outcomes, and it really dilutes the power of peer support. So in thinking about training, and we also operate at Colorado Mental Wellness Network a direct peer support service program called Peer Pathways to Wellness. We're co-located across Denver, providing drop-in peer support since March of 2019. And we've supported around, as of yesterday, it was 15,727 individuals. And we do that, and we're doing it well, and it's trailblazing in that we don't have clinicians on site. And it's successful because of training, because we know what our role is, we hold our role to fidelity, and we know what to do when things are outside of our role and scope. And we need clinicians, and we need clinical treatment, but what we also need is to know what it means to be a peer, what it is to be a peer supporter, and how do we get there with good training. And so what we've learned over the last decade plus is not everyone is cut out to do this work. It is hard. We know this, right? It's challenging. This work can be really brutal, and it's the nature of being deeply rooted in our recovery and our wellness is everything. Having excellent communication skills, everything. And learning something that is not part of who we are as humans. I think as humans, we want to fix, we want to give advice. And so it's like you learn in training how to reframe and shift your brain of like this innate, intuitive, natural part of us that wants to get in there and fix and give advice, right? And that's not what we do. And so how do we learn how to do something that isn't natural, right? And sitting in the muck and sitting in the suck with someone and listening and not wanting to jump in. And I think one of the big things about training and doing this role is, especially at first, you learn that you don't really tell your story as often as you might think. And it's thoughtful sharing and it's skillfully sharing. It's a lot more listening, and it's not a natural kind of human aspect of who we are. So what do we look for in training? Our training has become competitive. It's very robust, the application, the training itself. And we've added an interview to the process to really help individuals self-identify. Are you, or me, I guess deeply, is anyone that's looking to become a peer supporter deeply rooted in a recovery? And the neat thing about being a training organization and an employer is on the training side, we can ask questions through our application and the interview process that you cannot ask in hiring. It's against the law. So being able to not only support individuals in like identifying, am I deeply rooted? Am I ready for this? It's that we provide the opportunity to think about it and to let folks self-identify if you are. That's not up to us to determine. That's up to you as an individual. So some of the things we require: a high school diploma, GED, minimum of 1 year in recovery. That includes 1 year since any inpatient hospitalization, because stepping up to do this work, you got to be ready and you got to be rooted. It's hard. And we all know that you have to want to step up and support others, and we're not able to do that if we're not there ourselves. So just thinking about what do we look for in candidates? It's set readiness. It's having a support system and kind of just being the experts in our own selves. What is it that we do to stay well? What is it we do to be connected to community, to each other, and having that good support system, wellness tools, thinking about what do we do when things might start to fall apart, because they do, and what does that look like, and how do I kind of, what do I do when that happens, and who do I have in my life? So training with the interview, it's been a blessing, and it's also a lot of work. We went from 8 trainings this year to 11, so almost operating a training every single month with the application process and these interviews. It's been a lot, but it's important because we know that not everyone, unfortunately, is ready, and not everyone is cut out. So I think that goes for both on the hiring side and on the training side. We just have the opportunity to ask questions a little differently and spend some time for folks to think about, like, am I ready for this? We'll come back to any other things. Here you go, Kwika.
I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds here. So when I hear that question, I'm like, what are the things that I did when I was thinking, when I became a hiring manager for the first time? Honestly, like, just to be a hiring manager to begin with was something that I never thought I'd be in that position. So being that I am a peer in all of those experiences, but also a peer in looking for a job after what looks like crap on paper. I had gaps in employment. I also had a criminal background. There were things that I was very anxious and felt a lot of shame around. So I wanted to create an environment that felt safe. So that began with kind of adding in some hints in our job description about that we encourage and support unique lived experiences at our organization. It also meant meeting with our HR hiring manager and our recruiter. We have now where we get to know, we educate them on what peer support is, what could be limiting. We only require a high school diploma. And we do ask for a resume and cover letter, but when we look at resumes and cover letters, we also look at it with a lens of grace, because not everybody's going to just knock it out of the park when it comes to cover letter and resumes. So I know that I want to be as inclusive as possible when hiring peer supporters, because what I value the most is what they have experienced in their lives and being able to train them if they want to pass along hope to others. So it's a lot of that. We, as Hope mentioned, there's that whole legality of like, you can be like, are you in recovery from substance use or mental health? So we get creative with the questions that we ask during our interview. So we ask things like, what kinds of unique lived experiences do you bring to a team? And then if somebody self-identifies, we give them the assurance that you are in a safe space, and then we all self-disclose. So a lot of our leaders and managers, in fact, a lot of our staff at Colorado Village Collaborative, about 80% of our staff are peers, although they're not all in peer support specialist roles. That's how much we value unique lived experiences. And so once somebody self-discloses, then we, give them that affirmation. Hey, you're in a safe space. I have recovered myself. And then we'll all just do like a little snippet. And then they'll be like, oh man, I really am in an amazing room. We'll also ask some questions about like, what does self-care look like for you? Or what are your views on harm reduction and the many pathways to recovery? We'll also ask some questions that kind of dig in a little bit about where somebody's at as far as like, hey, when you're emotionally flooded, how do you re-regulate? So it's like one of those things that, especially in homelessness services, we're a bunch of traumatized people working with a bunch of traumatized people. So it's really important for us to find somebody that's thinking about those things, that I am going to be working in a really challenging environment, and how am I going to support myself in that environment? And then what else? Some of the things that I wish I would have done prior to creating a peer program, thanks to Caring for Denver for supporting me through this whole process of learning more as we continue our journey with them, is like really setting up an education system for the folks that aren't necessarily coming in from shared experiences with the people that we serve, because it's so critical to value the role of a peer supporter is equally as any other role in the organization. And, I'm really proud to say that with my leadership and some of our other senior leadership, about 95% of our managers and above are people with lived experience, their shared experiences with the people that we serve, because it brings that environment of like, they all want to create and build a space that is supportive of the people that we're serving. So those are, I think there was one more thing I wanted to touch on, and then the support system once you hire them. But I think we're going to get down to that, right? Yeah. Okay.
That'll fit the next question, actually. So thanks, Squeaka, and all of the other panelists for your comments. So we have many organizations that we've funded that are just starting peer support programs, and certainly want to hear about best practices and things like that. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, what are some key attributes of a successful peer support program?
This was touched on in both of your comments before, but the ones that sort of rose to the top during the assessment and just as we've been going through this process are people who understand that peer support is a distinct occupation, that it's not just a case manager with lived experience, that there's distinct roles and responsibilities and can help peer supporters navigate that, but also educate, as you all were talking about, the rest of the team, especially multidisciplinary teams. A lot of the peer support programs that are operating within the city are these multidisciplinary teams where there's an attorney and there's a social worker and there's all these different people who are like, well, can this person do security for whatever, or take out the trash or whatever? We're all happy to pitch in, but that's not maybe the best use of this person's time or skill set. So trying to make sure that folks understand and really advocating, I think maybe this goes without saying, but I think the supervisors that have experience working as peer supporters are often advocating, but it doesn't always have to be a peer supporter supervising other peer supporters. Often it's just someone who cares about advocating for this and who's hustling and trying to educate other people and trying to get funding and advocate, especially within city processes. I don't know that most folks know this, but the city is very siloed. There's a lot of bureaucracy. And so it takes someone who's consistently saying, these folks are not paid enough. There's not a classification that allows people to operate and move up. People are going to leave. We're going to lose the best peer supporters. So how do we advocate for that? And I think those programs that had a champion, that had someone, I mean, most of the folks are here in the audience, so I appreciate you all coming and showing how much you care about your peer supporters. So having a champion, someone who fights, unfortunately, you have to fight, but someone who fights for peer support professionals within this sphere is really helpful.
So just like any other profession, any other professions have job descriptions that are clear. There are tasks and roles within those that are clear. And I think that that's not any different when it comes to peer support professionals, but the lack of understanding and the lack of clarity on what is within our tasks and what is not. And then we're hearing across the state these like, oh, remember at the bottom are other duties as assigned as like this catch-all for clinical roles and clinical tasks that are not part of what we do. So it's getting really clear on what is this role, and having a clear job description that is a way to highlight what the responsibilities are of the role, the expectations of the role, and that your organization, the workplace, understands what the role is. It's like a way to showcase that and be clear. And language is important. And we've seen some pretty interesting titles that are not, they're mismatched and they're misaligning like what it is we do. We are non-clinical. We are professionals. And I think that in having very clear job description and understanding of what this role does, and because there's been generous funding and just saying, oh, we're going to figure it out. And this person that's in recovery is, again, this magically going to know what to do and welcome and just come on in and figure it out isn't real. That's not setting anyone up for success. And so what does it look like when you start a peer support program? Have you thought about what this looks like to integrate into a team that doesn't know what this person does? Do you know what the peer supporter does? What is within the role? Have they been trained? Is there training? And we know that in an ideal world, every peer support professional is supervised by a peer support professional, but that's not the reality, unfortunately. But we would like that. And ideally, that would make a lot of sense, that you are a person who's done this role and have very clear understanding of the fidelity of what it means. And then you would know how to also supervise someone because you've done it and you've experienced. And we also see, because of, lack of understanding, I really believe people have good intentions when they start peer programs and have peer support programs, but it's this lack of understanding and clarity that people don't just magically know what to do. And so having a supervisor that knows, that gets training, if you can't have someone for whatever reason that is a peer supporter, that if it has to be a clinical role, that there is that understanding that the clinical role gets training, gets support, there's a lot of community here to learn and to grow and to be able to provide direction, supervision, professional development, and knowing that we as professionals need time in our work schedule to get paid to do the things like professional development. Let your team have that time. We have at CMWN right now quarterly networking, peer support networking meetings every quarter where we have an hour for continued education. They're free. They're usually Fridays. With our association, we're opening up monthly. Every month, we're going to have a training with an opportunity for connection and networking, and let your staff attend ways in which to enrich their roles, right? So job description, clear roles, having an understanding of what we do. And if you don't know, there is a lot of wealth of knowledge. It's up here. It's working in the community to find support and understanding our role, that we're not, there's what we all know about, it's called role drift, and it happens. And I think that having an understanding and knowing this will happen, and knowing that what does that look like, being able to identify it so you can course correct, role drift back into the role. So it's implementing programs with thought, with preliminary work, with purpose, with being mindful about it, understanding the role, asking. Your job description is a way to highlight that you know what the role is, and if you don't know what the role is, there's a lot of support to figure it out and to align with our role, so we have that role fidelity. So that's a big one. I think we, just like the other part is, just like any other employee, peer supporters, we're not different, right? We don't need kid gloves. We don't need to be treated differently. We don't need different components. Treat us like a peer supporters, treat us like you would any other employee. What do? You know what their tasks are. You know what their roles are. You know we need support. What does supervision look like for other roles? Sometimes I think it's very simple. Like, it's simple. We have what is within our role, what is not. What is the purpose of the task you are assigning? And if that aligns and you're asking yourself, why are we doing this? Why would he have this role? What is this? And really honing in on the purpose and the why and getting support with that, it's simple. But I think because it's simple and we like to create confusion and make things more complicated, we have national standards. Every training, no matter which one you attend, must have SAMHSA's core competencies. They must have NAPS, or National Association of Peer Supporters, national practice guidelines. It is actually in statute. It is against the law in House Bill 211021, the Behavioral Health Peer Support Professional Bill, that all trainings must include SAMHSA's core competencies and NAPS, national practice guidelines. And I think there's opportunity to come together as a workforce, come together and unite. We don't even know how many of us there are here in Colorado. So with our association, and we really are launching an association based on what we've heard across the state, doing listening sessions, hearing a lot of like the egregious violations of our ethics and our values from employers that don't know. And like what makes our role have like the special sauce, right? It's that I think the two that get most confused are the fact it's voluntary and equally shared power. You cannot force someone to meet with a peer supporter. That is just not how this works. We're like vampires. You have to invite us in. Although that's not the best example, but it's like one that, we have to be invited for us to be able to get to do what we do and do it well. So that I think we see that, the voluntary aspect and the equally shared power. What we're seeing, which is really unfortunate because it's getting worse, is people are in a peer support role and then you are asked to do a UA. I can't understand how that's not like the differential in power. There is like, hey, I'm, in a different power up position. I'm conducting a UA, and now let's go sit down, and now we're equals. And I just watched you do this, right? Like that's what we're hearing a lot is there's a workforce shortage. We don't have enough money for it. And I'm telling you, it is not peer support unless we have the values and the two, like I said, the voluntary nature, the equally shared power. Those are a must, and it's not peer support without it. So we've got these core concepts, we've got our core values, we've got core ethics, and what we have been hearing, this is what I was getting to, over listening sessions over the past several years across our state, is that's the confusion, is what is within this role, what is not, and we want to come together and unite as all of us in this room and the state to be the ones to create what these additional, like we have the standards, let's just align with them. Let's create our own and like redo or like improve on the code of ethics that we have that's here in Colorado. We want to come together and do the work that needs to, like the standardizing, the supporting the elimination of mass confusion on all the levels from our state, from the new Behavioral Health Association, stakeholders. It's vast and it's massive, and it's unfortunate because, again, when we're not in our role and when we're having to spend so much time and energy and effort advocating for what is our role and that not being met. I mean, it's really, I could cry right now. The stories I hear of our workforce coming and saying, this is our role and I'm advocating for it, whether it's me or our staff, and being met with, this is how we're doing peer support now. So it looks like it's time for your annual review. And like these punitive measures where we're just trying to advocate so we can do our role. And if we're spending all of our time and energy advocating for a role, we're not able to do the thing that we're hired to do and the thing that we want to be doing. And so that's part of it, is we want to support the elimination of the confusion so that we can do our work in a supported way, held to the standards and our ethics and our values, and come together as a workforce to do that.
Thanks. What I would say, gosh, I have so many things to say about like what are some key attributes of a successful program. Try not to build the plane while you're flying it. Would be my number one. Okay, not possible. Okay, so then you're like me. So like I've learned things in hindsight. So it's always important to learn when you have a valuable lesson, you learn from it and you shift, right? You have to be really nimble in this work, especially if you're already like, you're on your mission, you're already launched the program and you're rolling. I will just second and third role clarity, training, hiring managers. It's really, really important to I'm a big advocate of peer support. Supervisors should be supervising peer supporters. Even if like you still need to follow the requirements for Medicaid billable services with an LCSW, you should still have a peer supporter supervising peer supporters. It's really critical to have somebody that's knowledgeable about all of the core principles, all of the core supervision principles to make sure that we're supporting our folks. A support system for the peers, because we are traumatized people serving traumatized people. You need to make sure that your peers have a wellness around them, that it's normal to talk about when we're struggling, that they have the opportunity to debrief critical things that happen in their roles, or maybe you just never know. You could do all the healing in the world. I mean, I'm 8 years into my recovery journey, and I'm like, wow, I was just really triggered by that. It's the acceptance that some things just, we peel back the layers of our onion on our recovery journey, and we learn new things. And who we are today wasn't who we are. Who I am today wasn't who I was 8 years ago. It wasn't who I was last year, because I'm constantly learning and moving. So I would also say, make sure you're clear on what you're trying. What is the goal of your program? What is your aim? And build back from there on like how you can create your program. If you're already in it, have a system set up in place where you can learn. I just want to shout out Caring for Denver again for creating environments where we can learn and shift and pivot. That is essential in this work, because things that like my initial goals when I first started creating peer support and homelessness services in our programs, it looks 180 degrees different perspective right now. And I am just super grateful to be able to tell you that, like, yes, we're documenting, we're taking notes on our one-on-ones, but we're also, leading peer support groups. We're also offering debrief sessions. We're also now folding in an LCSW who has been, she's just really knowledgeable about what peer support is. So making sure your clinicians are knowledgeable about what peer support is, the core principles, and how to interact with peers on a day-to-day basis. And that, role drift is a real thing. I am going to share with you what was super impactful for me at my first peer job. I'm super grateful for my supervisor then. But as we've been building out the programming at Colorado Village Collaborative, we've now created a supportive services arm that houses peer support and case management. Now, they're not the same thing. Case managers can maybe hire somebody who has shared experiences with the people that you serve, but that's just a different role than a peer support. And peer supporters have that voluntary, equally shared power advocacy lens in it. So the 3-lane highway, okay, there is a 3-lane highway. The peers are on one side of the highway and the case managers on the opposite side. And then there's the middle lane where we can merge in and out of, but there has to be that critical capability of merging out for peers. So if you're meeting in a one-on-one with somebody and they're like, I really would like to explore what this looks like, and maybe it's a job training program, right? And they get offered case management services and they're like, well, I feel safe and I trust you and I'd really like to explore this with you. That's a little merging capability, right? And then I'll support you from the sidelines as a cheerleader as you continue this journey, but needs that need to be met that are aligned with the other side of the highway. We need to make sure that we're not solely in there and I'm just doing things with you, and really just creating that encouraging and supportive environment for peers to be in spaces with the people that they work with.
Thank you. The 3-lane highway. What a great visual. I love it. I know we've got some slides that kind of do a visual, and I'm gonna. Can I steal that? So it's that the circles. I know you do too, and maybe we can figure out the 3-lane highway. But oh my gosh, what important things you touched on, and thank you about the nimbleness too, Kwika. You rock.
Yeah, so I think the point I'm going to remember is that peers are like vampires. Is that just get they to be invited? So I'm not sure vampirism is the right lived experience we're looking at. So yeah. Life giving. Okay. So, all right. So the next question that we have is around retaining peers. So one of the things that we've heard from many of our grantees is that there's just been turnover, just in the field in general, that they're seeing, and even among their grants, it's been hard to kind of retain peers for a variety of reasons. And so I'd just love to hear from you guys around what are some things organizations can do to support and retain a peer supporter.
Yeah, I think this is a good place to talk about the actual assessment that we did. So we came together, we had a contract with the University of Denver who came in and did surveys and focus groups and then in-person action planning. And some of the things that we found out are that basically the HR classification at the city of peer navigator has no way to go up. So people were like, okay, I'm not going to be in one level of classification for my entire career. So people were leaving and we were losing all that institutional knowledge, all of that peer support knowledge, and the turnover of that was really harmful. People were also saying it feels unethical to recruit people into these roles because it feels like a dead end sort of pigeonholed position. We were realizing too that the way it works at the city is if people were going to Colorado Mental Wellness Network and getting certification and getting a lot of training and professional development, there was no pay bump at the city. Don't know that we could fix that right now. We're working on it long term, but that's part of what we're thinking through. But basically people are just feeling like it's stuck. There's not a lot of opportunity to grow and learn and grow in your career as a peer supporter. A lot of people were leaving for administrative roles, and so we were losing all of that connection to peer support. We thankfully got another grant and are continuing this work, but also trying to make sure that folks can share knowledge and share this role with the city of County in Denver. So folks were asking, can we do a newsletter to share the position and share what this position does and what it doesn't do, so we can elevate the role and the experience and all of that. I think folks, just anecdotally, what I've noticed is folks want to give back, and they want to give back in direct service roles, but they also want to give back to the profession. And so being able to harness that, it's folks are already doing that. They were volunteering. They're volunteering on statewide committees, all these different things. How can we harness that and ensure that people can give back to the peer support workforce at the city and county of Denver? So we're trying to build out those structures. We had folks who were on the peer support workforce advisory group that were volunteering time on top of their full-time jobs, and just trying to make sure that we have avenues and inputs for people to be able to do stuff, because this is, as you all know, an extremely passionate group of folks. So just trying to make sure that they have the opportunity to give back. And I think that those folks who've given back have also stayed.
We do have a few more minutes until we go into our Q&A session, but I guess we can go into that a little bit. But I just wanted you to know that. Yeah, time check.
Thank you. I was thinking about that too, building the plane when you're flying it. I'm like, oh, are we going to see, is that going to come up at me? And I don't know any nonprofit work that's not a little bit of that, building the plane while flying it, and just some things like they say, you throw it, stick it, see if it sticks on the wall, which is kind of a weird, I don't like that one as much as the plane. Anyway, sorry, I digress here. Supporting and retaining peer supporters. I think as our workforce grows, and we know the professionalism, we know the impact, we know it's evidence-based, we know we've got the research, it shows that what we do works. And as the opportunities grow and the funding grows, and we're hoping there's, who knows what's going to happen with the behavioral health administration, but just the opportunities for further growth, expansion, and funding, the sky's the limit. And so I think that what I love about being at CMWN, and I know other organizations are this way too, we are 100% peer-run, peer-led. So we have peer support professionals in roles like marketing, communication, executive director, our recovery education director. We're going to be hiring an association manager, and every role is a peer support. You've been a peer supporter, you've got the training. So I think we can get creative in the different organizations that we have, and I'm sure we'll grow. And Kuika, what an excellent example with you and what's happening at the state or city, and congratulations on your grant. So things in retaining us and like keeping it, sorry, no time, check, brain. I think it's, how do we retain employees? What do? We have funding, additional raises. We've got opportunities. There is an investment in your future. There is having opportunities to learn from each other, to attend additional trainings, professional development, and like a recognition. You touched on this, Kuika, and I think it's just so super important. What we do is hard. How do you support someone to come into work and leaving, like, whatever happened, right? Our traffic is ridiculous. Like, I spilled on myself on the way here. Like, all the things that happen in life that you bring and you walk into work, and you're supposed to just be ready and present and able to support others. What do? How do we get support in doing that? And like almost more importantly, on the flip side, how do we have a day where we support and give our all and show up and do our best and meet people where they're at in times that means not doing anything but saying, I hold space for you and I'm here. And that is hard. So how do we leave the fact that I wasn't able to do anything but provide space? And that's not for nothing, of course, right? The work, the hope, the validation, all that we do for folks. But sometimes when we leave work, we couldn't do the thing we wanted to do because we're staying within our role and our boundaries and our organization or workplaces, policies and procedures. And that's hard, the gray area we live in. It's not black and white. Life's not black and white. Working with people isn't black and white. But a lot of the work we do is gray. And how do we run all these things, do all this amazing work? And how do we leave it at the door so we can go home and take care of ourselves and our family and our children, our pets, our lives? How do we do that? And I think that's part of retaining our work and retaining peer support professionals is acknowledging that, supporting that in a helpful way that's not becoming a therapist as a supervisor, but treating us just like you would other staff that you have. And how do you do that for them? But knowing that we need that and a recognition that our work is hard. God, I could go on and on. So I think for time's sake, here you go.
I'll be quick because I'm sure there's a lot of questions in the audience. So I want to be respectful of their time. But what I will say is this is just one of those topics that you have to constantly be reevaluating on a regular basis. I would say setting up a safe environment is, I'm not going to say we've done it perfectly. Sometimes we've done it really poorly, but making sure all staff have a way to communicate what's going on with them, communicate what's going on in their work environment, setting up, we set up a more expansive support system specifically for our peer supporters, which includes the support groups, the debriefing. We also instituted some organizational level things like traumatic event leave, so that they could take time off if they needed to recover from something they'd experienced. Free therapy we provide all of our pupils. And then also just making sure that you're including all of the things. It's so important to be inclusive, but also be equitable. And so not all peer supporters can be treated the same. Some you need to provide more equitable opportunities for folks. And I'm talking about just along life experiences, racial lines, gender lines, everything. You have to do your best to hear and communicate and listen and do better. As long as you always have a commitment to do better when you're not doing better, I think that you can create and support and retain peers.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're going to open it up to questions now. And I think there is perfect. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand and Akila will bring the mic to you. I will go ahead and start with some questions that we got online, actually. And while Akila's walking to where she needs to go. And I'll just, we're not going to have time for all of these, but I thought this would be a really just a great context-setting question. But this question is about the field in general. But what brought about the need for peer support? And so who would like to take that on?
Well, I think we look back at history, and peer support's been happening a really long time. Since the 1700s, actually. I was just listening to a supervisor training. Our facilitator likes to do this thing, how far back does it go? How far back have people been coming together to talk about shared experiences? And whether that is on substance use side, the farm, agricultural side, but peer support's been around for a long time, and it didn't start because, we have this great idea. This person over here is doing excellent in recovery. Let's have her just magically know what to do. This has been around for a long time, part of our, as you mentioned, Tim, social and cultural social justice. We've been doing this a long time in different capacities, but yeah, history.
I could go on that further. Form of resistance.
Yes.
Do
you want it?
Yes. Here, I was just going to say. Peer support is just a form of resistance against the status quo, against we don't fit in boxes. We need other things. It supports a unique individual for who they are, what they've been through, and just celebrating everybody's kind of journey.
So we have a peer support program for formerly incarcerated folks. We run a program called Breaking Chains, Building Bonds, to help parents reconnect and break those cycles of incarceration, substance abuse, and trauma. And our support folks are not certified as peer support specialists. It's something that we have talked about, looking into and perhaps doing. We've definitely been flying the plane while building it. I think, like somebody said, it's unavoidable when you're doing nonprofit work, because you have the idea and the programs before you have the structure to make it all happen. So we've had a lot of pitfalls in figuring out how do we support our peers. But one of the things there's two things that I've noticed that tend to happen a lot is, one, they don't have adequate training. And a huge piece of it is, because you've experienced trauma doesn't mean you understand trauma, right? A personal experience of trauma is different than a knowledge, academic understanding of trauma. And you have to, as a peer, I think you have to know when your trauma is coming into play. Like you mentioned, man, I've been in recovery 8 years, I still have triggers. I think that's true for any of us who have been on a healing journey. And so, how do we provide, what is that training or what is that we have to provide so that people can recognize when is my trauma now coming into play in this situation, and I need to have the tools to check myself, address my own trauma, do my own self-care so that I'm not now causing more harm to this person who I am supposed to be supporting, right? And then the other piece of it is how, as an organization, as a ED, as a supervisor, do I provide, instead of saying self-care, you go take care of yourself, how do I create a system of where I am caring for my peer support folks? Because saying do self-care is like, now I've put another thing on your plate. You're already overwhelmed. You're already overworked. You're experiencing ongoing traumas in your own family and personal life. But, how do we actually implement as organizations a system to care for them?
Well, I just want to say I hear you, man, and I feel it to my core. But I would say let's start getting those folks trained with peer support principles and core principles of what peer support is, because they do go into a lot of that in the training. I'm sure Hope can, talk through kind of some of the core principles that you go through training. I would say one of the things that, we try to get folks into peer support training almost immediately upon hire, but of course you have to wait till the next training date. So what we do now is have a little like onboarding, not peer support training, but training. So we role play, we shadow, we look at what existing peer supporters are doing. We start building out plans of like how to take care of yourself, because, we have to be really open with our folks. Like sometimes our environment, because we are a harm reduction alternative shelter, we are very upfront with the peer supporters that we serve or that we hire, because of the manner in which we serve, which we don't want to create barriers for folks who are sleeping outside. So like, some folks in recovery, like we want to make sure they're taking care of themselves. Like you're probably going to encounter somebody that happens to be intoxicated every now and then, like what does that look like for you? How do you care for yourself? So setting up environments where you are providing as much training. I would say there's not a lot of like trainings out there for like, what does it look like to be trauma responsive as a peer supporter? So like, it's one of the things that I'm like, Lorez is probably like going to be like, Quika, yes. So I'm in the process of creating like a suite of training services that take that lens of a peer supporter into account, because we have 80% of our people in our workforce that are, doing this work. And it's important to know how this work and serving folks affects the peer from a peer lens. And then I would say, what was the last? Oh, self-care. That's you can say do self-care, and it really depends on what that person's concept of what self-care is. You can, like when somebody asks me, what do I do for self-care? And I'm like, trauma therapy, because I'm in it, and that's how I have to care for myself. But some people will probably say, oh, bubble bath, right? So like, what does self-care mean? And what does it mean to care for yourself while you're faced with, very traumatic stories? And I would say that peer support group has been monumental for our peers in being able to support each other in this work, because we all have wonderful experiences that not all of us have the same experience, and we should lean on that and you should lean on that as an executive director.
Hi there. My name is Bridget. I am Director of Behavioral Health at the BIAC Community Health Center, and I'm also President and founder of Latinx Therapist Project. So a big thing, so I value the role of peer support, and in part of my network I'm part of a network where we're all directors of federally qualified health centers. And the biggest thing that we've encountered is the struggle for the organization to support the funding of a peer support position because it's not reimbursable position with FQHC standards. And so my question for you all is, do you all have anything to share about maybe with that? And also, do you know if there's any advocacy being done in regards to that level? Because, when I read those standards of like, here are the providers that can bill, it's like even case managers can't bill at this point. And so for me, it's like wild, like that these positions can't be billable. So yeah, two side notes question, if you know, and if there's opportunities, I'd love to support with that advocacy as well.
Advocacy, yes, absolutely something that is going on within recovery communities. We've been doing a CMWN. There's a lot happening with advocacy, and I'd love to connect with you on that. Billing, like reimbursable billing, that is an opportunity that recently became available for peer-run organizations, recovery community organizations. It's not something that we've jumped in and done. There's a lot of complexity still and a lot of new nuances around grant funding, being able to get grant funding and become a Medicaid reimbursable service. There's a lot of, there are codes, there's work happening, and further to be done around other states are doing this and doing it well. And I think that we have this weird thing here in Colorado. We like to reinvent the wheel. I don't know why over and over and over again, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'd love to connect about advocacy and explore some different routes of how do we do our work, get reimbursed because it's available, and be able to maintain grant funding. So trying to be fast, and let's connect.
Yes, my name is Markel Taylor. I'm the communication director for ABO's marketing, also a traumatic brain injury screener, and I'm on the Zero Suicide team, a traumatic brain injury screener for a road called Straight and ABO's advocacy. I'm also a family and peer specialist at WellPower. What are we doing to make sure that, and I work on the Zero Suicide team, so I'm heavy into the trauma as well. I'm one of the crisis peer specialists over there. What are we doing to make sure that the peer specialists are being paid fair wages? First and foremost, at WellPower, I think we're the second highest peer specialists. We start us off at $25 an hour over there to make sure, and the work, and I know a lot of people say that, and we want to make sure that the workforce is paid the work that we do in the community, whether it's in trauma, homelessness, zero suicide or suicide. It's a lot of work, or TBI. And we want to make sure that the wages is fair so we don't also continue to suffer the financial trauma that we suffer coming from the areas we come from, and can have a sustainable living with doing the work that we do. Sometimes we get caught doing case management work and don't know the difference between a peer supporter, a peer professional, and case managers. And that's one question. What is the base salary in Colorado to hire a peer professional or to bring in a peer specialist?
I think that's the conversation happening at the City and County of Denver. The HR classification was created in 2018. Jenny Lothill, I'm sure you all know her. She's big in this space, but she helped create it and wanted to make sure that the City and County of Denver was paying folks pretty well. It's obviously not caught up with inflation, so we're fighting hard for this. Eyes to all my city people. We're all like hustling, trying to bring in the Office of Human Resources, because we know that we are probably going to set the stage with WellPower, which is now becoming more of a monopoly with the
second highest. Centennial, I think, is the first highest. Our base salary is $25.
So you're higher than us because we haven't caught up yet, but it's nice to be able to point to that and say, here is still not an adequate salary, but something that is higher, because we can set the stage for the rest of the folks that are in Colorado trying. So we're trying.
Hi, my name is Heather Kopis. I'm with the Friends of DHA. I have a question about, have you had any experience, or if you have feedback on starting peer-to-peer programs for youth or teenage programs?
That's a great question. I'll just start off and saying, and all these are great questions. I want to answer so many things. I'm like, my brain's like, we got to keep connecting, keep talking, and more after for all to support. But I think For what we know now, as far as aligning on the national level, to become a peer support professional, it starts at 18 to have the high school diploma or GED, and it's kind of this where we're at currently for adults. We're serving adults, and what a brilliant way. How do we support our youth supporting each other? So I think that's not new, but how do we do that when on the national level, it's training age minimum is 18. So work definitely happening. I actually, there's a couple, someone new that I will think of and get back to you, but I think it's absolutely imperative. This is where we need to start, how we do that with training and this kind of the standards where we are for serving adults. I'm not sure yet, since our kind of entry level is like the 18 around 18 years old. So great question. I wish I had more.
So I hear that you guys have lived experience, and I guess my question is, how do you guys cope with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's really hard to hear that question, but I'm not going to talk like an expert, though. I'm just going to tell you right now. So I have it all the time. I had it when I first started as a peer navigator, and I'm blown away by still having it. What I would say is make sure you build up the folks around you, your support system, your own personal support system, not just your work support system. And I get mirrors held up to me all the time by my support system that says, you are enough and you are doing these things. And they can sit there with me in that moment and acknowledge that I get why you feel that way, but also here's what you're doing. I don't know about you, but like I had to take so I'm a survivor of the criminal court system. So I take my thoughts to court all the time, and I try to prove them wrong with facts, and things that I have accomplished and how I have supported people, and just, have your Rolodex of things that reminds you of why you do what you do and how you're good at it, and just flip through that at night, or maybe take a journal, a bunch of different things, right? Like, of course, I'm going to have so many ideas for you that I don't do myself. So I'm just throwing that out there as well. But remind yourself of the beauty and the magic that our roles and have people around you that can send that your way, and then try to actively practice absorbing it. That's one thing I have a hard time with. I'll go, oh, no. No. And I'll wave it off. And then I have people now that go, no, please sit with that for a moment, because I want you to hear what you have done for others.
So well said. Oh, what a great question, because I don't know anyone that started out in any role that thinks that they can do this and do it well. And especially being deeply rooted, knowing, what all we've done in our work, our recovery work, the work on ourselves. It's like all of that, the work on stigma, and the work we continue to do with stigma. And I still, there was times, especially when I first started, first of all, I thought, when I got hired into this role, who in the heck thought I could do this? And what in the world? I didn't lie about my experiences. I didn't lie about anything. And I think imposter syndrome is real. And anything that you do that you first start out at, especially when it's coming up against things that you are fighting to do, if that makes sense. My self-stigma and shame, I still comes up, and I still have to go, you know what? Like you said too, I'm doing it, you're doing it, we're doing it. And remembering the little wins, remembering that you have the potential to do this, and no one thinks that thought of who in the world thought I could do this? Whenever you think that, you do it, and you can do it. And so, a great question. I want to pick Lorez's brain on that too. How do we overcome this imposter syndrome? And it does. You get, just like anything, better. You keep doing it, and you get more comfortable, and you just live in gratitude, I think.
I think we'll take one more question.
Thank you all so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And it's great to see so many of my mentors in this room. So I'm a internist at Denver Health, and I have been recognized the value of lived experience and the power that this can have, and I've seen it. And I want to be a better ally. And, as we're working on sort of building our peer team at Denver Health. I'm just curious what advice you have for those of us that do not have lived experience. How can we be allies to you, because you have a really hard job and supporting our patients, yet I just see so much is missing from our clinical care. And so thank you.
Well, I'll chime in as an ally. I think like listening and uplifting, people are telling you what they want. They're like, this is a real role. It's hard and we need to get paid more. So like if you could repeat those 3 things, I'm sure people would be pretty happy.
Oh my gosh, love it. And I guess that we're the experts in our own selves, right? Whether that is our recovery or wellness, and just honoring that within the work we do as peer supporters and the work that you do. So thank you for all the work you do as well.
Yeah, I would just say all that and more. Continue educating coworkers or other people in your professions that maybe don't see the value or don't know about the value of peer support, I will say, and then providing opportunities. So like we're in the process of creating a lead peer role, and we have a peer manager who's a peer. So like creating opportunities for folks, like we can show up in this space and do great things. So.
Well, thank you for all of your questions. I hope this was a useful use of your time. We did record this, so it will be available on our website for you to review. We can also make available the slide deck. I noticed people taking pictures of it, so just make sure you didn't miss anything, or if you want to share it with some of your colleagues, really encourage that. So I want to pause here and just ask you to join me in thanking our panelists. I think they've provided great information. Okay, so we're about to go into our networking event. When we get to that, there will be a QR code up on the screen. You'll probably see cards with the QR code. There's a number of resources that are tied to that QR code. There's some reports about how to train, retain, hire, recruit a peer support workforce from a couple of foundations, from the city, from the state, and then also there's our contact information is up there as well. And so just make sure that if you want to read more and learn more about how to hire, train, retain a peer support workforce, that resource is going to be available to you. We want ideas for what we might do next in terms of peer support, and should we have another convening and what that might look like. And so we have an idea board over next to the where the slideshow is. And so there's some Post-it notes over there. So during the networking event, if you could just stop there and kind of share your ideas about what you want to see in response to the question that's there, that would be greatly helpful to us, because that will let us know kind of what our next steps might be in terms of doing future convenings and how we can better support the peer support workforce. So I think that's pretty much all we have today. And so thank you for attending, and I think we'll start the networking event.
Thank you.